What's going on, everybody? Um, welcome to my channel. This is another reaction to a behind the scenes from Insider, giving you different varieties of videos that share just the behind the scenes of different things in film, and one in particular that we're about to watch. And Um, I'll kind of pause in between just explaining or my take on it. Is one of my favorite films, Jurassic Park. They have made 6 films. Yes, 6 films. The last 3 so, but the first is one of the best. Here's going to be a reaction to a behind the scenes of how 6 moments, I believe, on how they made the Jurassic Park films. So here we go.
While the raptors
Let me
in Jurassic Park's famous kitchen scene, this shot featured a man. While the raptors in this shot were created digitally. These shots featured raptor puppets and actors wearing raptor boots and gloves.
You know that great moment where the raptor reaches in, opens the door? That's just a guy wearing a raptor glove and reaching around.
The Jurassic movies have constantly innovated how dinosaurs appear on screen, pushing CGI forward while never exclusively relying on digital methods, even in 2022. We spoke with 9 of the minds behind the Jurassic creatures to find out how dinosaur effects have evolved over the course of 3 decades. Steven Spielberg first envisioned his dinosaurs as entirely stop-motion creations, designed by legendary stop-motion animator Phil Tippett.
How'd you do this?
I'm going to pause it for a second here. I have this film on VHS, DVD, and Blu-ray. That goes to show you how much I love this film. I've seen the behind the scenes of this, and the acting right here of what they see is literally a field, like football fields of empty stuff, but green screen, and just, I'm not an actor, but actors have to portray that they see creatures that are millions and millions of years, like if they're living among us right now. So let's go.
I'll show you.
They didn't want to initially trust that we could do full CG T-Rexes because he was the most important critter in there. All the other ones could kind of wander around in the
That is
background,
just
but as far
green
as
screen
the actors acting to that was the
and
big
puppet stuff.
So we got the test shot that we showed to Steven, and that's what changed the film.
Gene was there for one of these initial tests.
Suddenly, you went from things that were like a skeleton or the Mercury Man in T2. You went to something that had color and texture and sheen to it. You could put anything anywhere on the screen and make it alive.
The only problem? It looked like the manpower needed on the computer animation side would be too high. So the stop-motion artists at Tippett Studios worked with the VFX team at ILM to develop dinosaur input devices, or DIDs, physical models of the dinosaurs hooked up to computers. The skeletons were covered with sensors that tracked the orientations of their joints and sent that information to the computer, translating the movement into keyframes.
And this was all done back in
animators could then work with the
1993.
computer models without having to master computer animation software, shifting their skills to the digital realm.
That was the thing that really melted the glacial divide between traditional stop motion and computer graphics.
Thanks to CG, Jurassic Park's T-Rex could go from being a background character to a star of the film. Spielberg even rewrote the ending to include this fight between the CG T-Rex and 2 raptors. The real secret to the dinosaur's believability, though?
When we first meet the T-Rex in the paddock sequence, it is a combination of CG and practical effects.
Designed by FX pioneer Stan Winston and his team of sculptors, puppeteers, and mechanics.
That sequence cuts between both methodologies. If you intercut CG with an actual physical on-set puppet, they're never quite sure what they're looking at.
And just real quick, from what I'm told, Steven Spielberg wanted to tease the dinosaurs just like he did on Jaws. I might be wrong on this because you don't get it almost not reaching half of the film yet, but in towards the film. And the way they slowly tease the T Rex and how he looks menacing right here, which this is actually a puppet, not CGI. So, really cool stuff.
That is the reason that that remains to this day one of the more realistic fantasy moments in cinema history.
The animatronic dinosaurs had their own advancements.
The dinosaurs of Jurassic Park required a whole rethink on the mold making process. Traditionally, in practical
It's like
effects,
building a
it was
car.
done with various types of stones, but these
But
would not be
really big car.
appropriate materials for gigantic molds. So the studio looked to the epoxies that were being used in the aerospace industry and applied those materials for the dinosaurs. It allowed them to create very large, very durable molds that would retain their integrity. They wouldn't warp.
Like these raptor puppets seen in the attack on Muldoon.
I was actually the raptor left arm puppeteer in most sequences. The arm cable actuated devices allowed for fantastic expressiveness with their hands.
And for the iconic complex kitchen sequence,
That sequence involves every possible trick in the book to make you believe raptors are real. See,
before I go into if they show it to you here, takes about several steps from drawing to computer to the CGI right there. Then when it gets closer to like the raptor's head, their claws, their feet, it's just a mix of so much stuff just for one scene that is tense in this moment.
CGI raptors, insert puppets that were basically the head and a bit of the neck, lower body rigs that were just the legs, raptor gloves. It includes men in raptor suits when they first enter the kitchen, and one of them
I would
moves
do
up
this
and
job.
poops.
I'd be in a raptor suit.
That's a man in a suit. The men in suit approach was great for wider shots like that. But when you're close up, more often than not, it will be a puppet.
ultimately, there were 15 minutes of dinosaurs in Jurassic Park.
9 minutes are practical puppets. 6 minutes are CGI.
I think I was kind of right. She just said 15 minutes in total. And almost kind of like Jaws, which is interesting. Puppet and CGI. And that's why Jurassic Park is, for me, favorite movie of all time.
Dan was a huge believer that the best way to fool an audience is don't lean too heavily on one technique, keep them guessing.
By the time the second Jurassic movie rolled around, practical innovations meant the team could lean even more on animatronics.
On JP2, they changed it up. They wanted the skins to move more realistically, and so they created an elaborate network of foam musculature. And on top of those foam muscles that moved and intersected very realistically, they laid a much thinner skin so that you could actually get a sense of the musculature moving underneath the skin.
Plus, Stan Winston's mechanics extended their use of hydraulic motors used on the T-Rex in the first movie.
Even though the Tyrannosaurus Rex from Jurassic Park 1 was by far the toughest character to pull off, it actually was the easiest to puppeteer because it was a hydraulic puppet puppeteered via a telemetry device. It only took a few people to puppeteer that big T-Rex. So that technique was what we used for every dinosaur in Jurassic Park 2,
I'd also
other
want
than
this
the
job.
smallest of them. And thanks to that approach, the raptors, which in the first one
I'd be that guy that's being eaten right now.
operate, only took 2 or 3 people to operate in Jurassic Park 2.
The smallest dinosaurs still relied on more traditional puppetry, like the Compsognathus, or Compies, chicken-sized dinosaurs that attack in packs. Most notably when they team
those
up
were
to kill the
creepy.
hunter.
There were so many of them, and so many CG ones had to jump on this
Those were creepy ones, and then I don't know if they show it, but if you know the movies, the one that flaps and spits at you.
actor. And they all had to be performing, and the guy's moving like this and thrashing, and he's pulling them, and all the weights when they jump onto this moving guy had to be right.
Stan Winston's team built several types of puppets to perform a range of compy behaviors. One type of puppet attached to the actor via Velcro pads on a hidden suit. Super strong fishing line rigged the puppet up to an off-screen controller, which a puppeteer could tug on to create a pecking motion.
This I've first time
Meanwhile, an
seeing.
airline trigger ran
There it
air
is,
through Compy's
puppets.
tail, causing it to whip around in a frenzy. For this shot of Stormare trying to grab and pull the compies off, the team used a puppet with high-powered magnets on its feet. These magnets attached to other magnets sewn into the actor's clothes, making the compy difficult to pull off. The puppeteers could also be as close to the puppets as needed, since they could just be erased in post.
The length of the puppeteering rods before digital had to be really long. If you can't get close to the puppet, you can't really do much in terms of controlling it. It's always going to have this kind of bouncing, kind of floaty kind of quality. Now, with digital, you can choke up on that rod. You can be just a couple inches from the puppet, and you can be moving it around really smoothly.
The prime example is the sequence where the little girl and the compy interact there on the beach. The puppeteers were right there. They were within just a foot or two of that compy.
In the final shots, the team mixed puppet compies with digital ones, which you can spot based on movement.
Mainly the ones that seem to have a lot of pizzazz and a lot of anger, I think, are the ones that we could animate enough to make them look interesting.
These mini dinosaurs set the stage for a much larger creature in Jurassic 3, which would demand the heaviest, biggest, and fastest dinosaur robot ever built.
We wanted a
Go big or go
dinosaur
home?
that could defeat T-Rex. You know, T-Rex is everybody's favorite dinosaur.
The movie's paleontology consultant Jack Horner suggested the Spinosaurus, which was bigger and more vicious, capable of killing the T-Rex in the final showdown. The foundation of that final showdown was practical, filmed with two massive animatronics, as demonstrated here in an early hand puppet test. But filmmakers couldn't have the two puppets really go at it.
They would have destroyed each other pretty quickly.
So they storyboarded a fight that used an animatronic Spinosaurus and a digital T-Rex in some shots, and vice versa in others.
That, I think, was the first time in the Jurassic Park movies that they were actually interacting with each other physically.
For the animatronics, the crew took one of the T-Rexes from the previous movie out of storage and refurbished it for the fight. But the Spinosaurus had to be built from scratch.
The audience had to believe that this dinosaur could kill a T-Rex. So it had to be bigger, it had to be faster. The
It was a
T-Rex
scary
had
looking
about
one compared to the
200
T-Rex.
horsepower driving it. The Spinosaurus had 1,000 horsepower. It was 5 times more powerful. It was far sturdier than the T-Rex as well, which had actually been quite delicate.
Once the final Spinosaurus design got a thumbs up from a consulting paleontologist, the team sculpted an 8-foot-long, 1/5 scale maquette. Instead of sculpting the animatronic from clay like they did for the T-Rex, the crew went with a more high-tech method. They used a cyber scan of the maquette to create computer-milled foam pieces. And all these pieces had to withstand a very specific element: water.
Yep.
With Jurassic Park 1, the T-Rex was rained upon extensively. The foam skins acted like a sponge and absorbed tons of water in every shot, which affected its performance because it was finely tuned to a certain weight. But when all the water was absorbed, it changed all those calculations. They waterproofed the T-Rexes in Jurassic Park 2 with a layer of silicone over the foam skin. And that waterproofing approach reached its pinnacle with the Spinosaurus, which the inner mechanical devices were waterproof in waterproof housings. Aspects of the Spinosaurus's face were actually cast in a solid urethane that would not absorb water. That to this day remains the Guinness Book of World Records largest animatronic ever built for a film.
It was so large, it had to be lifted with cranes and driven to Universal Studios on a route that didn't go under bridges. Once on set, the crew mounted it to a motorized cart that ran on tracks, which allowed the animatronic to move forward and backward, while it moved up and down on cylinders. And to get those fast movements you see here, the Spinosaurus used state-of-the-art hot rod hydraulics, controlled by an 18-inch telemetry device. William H. Macy, who played Paul Kirby in the film, said the puppet could turn its head at twice the force of gravity, with the tip of its nose moving at 100 miles per hour. Its strength didn't make it indestructible, though.
That scene with the airplane, every take, it would lose one of its claws. Every take was all right, go back to the shop.
When filming the big fight, the two teams of puppeteers used their telemetry devices to swing the puppets around.
It took about 12 animatronic operators to do each one of them.
Although they tried to keep
Just a real quick thing, as you can see here, movie making is not easy, and I think this involves a lot of engineering because just the mechanics, and 12 people had to involve a bigger dinosaur to take down the T Rex. Awesome stuff.
Physical
Let's keep
contact
going.
between the two puppets to a minimum, the T-Rex still got hurt.
It was actually before the fight started. It was the two animatronic dinosaurs sort of roaring at each other. T-Rex sort of started going crazy. The puppet was just sort of vibrating. And it turns out that one of the hydraulic lines had broken inside, and hydraulic fluid was going everywhere, and re-skinned part of it and try to sew it back together and everything. It was wild. It's on film somewhere.
14 years later, major improvements in performance capture made complex movement like this
This
possible in the
movie's
second Jurassic
enjoyable, but
franchise. A step up from puppets and stop motion. Jurassic World sought to bring its velociraptors to a whole new level of realism, giving them an unprecedented
the guy's just wearing a
complexity of
helmet,
motion.
but a
It was
gray
difficult for a
suit.
performance capture artist to physically stand the way that a raptor's supposed to for a prolonged period of time. And velociraptors do have a unique size and shape compared to human performers. But ILM was able to retarget the captured performances of the human actors to the raptor bodies without losing the subtlety of the performances. The reward was that the raptors look heavy and lifelike with very intricate movement on screen. With CG having advanced to this level, the next film could go beyond pure realism to give life to a genetically engineered dinosaur that never actually existed, the Indoraptor. Unsurprisingly, this massive dinosaur would mainly be a digital creation, but the actors needed something to react to on set.
There was a lot of physical interaction between the actors and the dinosaurs.
Combo of CGI
More so
and
maybe than in the previous film.
practical effects.
The solution for some scenes came in the form of partial animatronics, like this giant mechanical arm and a moving, breathing head operated by a team of puppeteers who controlled the tiny movements in the eyes.
A good deal of the Indoraptor was performed using a real-time animatronic.
The crew also built a non-moving head.
We created a full-size Indoraptor head and neck and tail that was made from a very lightweight inflatable material. So we actually blew it up like a child's bouncy castle, made a rig for it to allow two performers to wear, one the front end and one the back end. We would use these inflatable versions in any scene where the actors needed an eye line or visual effects needed a scale representation that wouldn't be in the frame.
These various forms of the Indoraptor not only provided the cast with tangible scene partners, they also gave the camera team something physical to work with, and the VFX team a reference for the Indo's lighting and movement.
The movement of the Indoraptor seemed to me to be quite faithfully followed. I'm never really quite sure whether there was a paint overlay or whether or not there was a complete C substitution for the Indoraptor in the end. That's not very difficult to know where and when the technique began, which is great.
On Jurassic World Dominion, decades of innovation made it possible to create hybrid dinosaurs that were part CG, part puppet, like the Giganotosaurus, a dinosaur with a head the size of a car.
The head, roughly just above the shoulders, was an animatronic, and the rest of the creature is digital. And if you can see where it's slightly more.
And then
opaque
they added
white
this to
around
the
head and neck,
Universal
that's the
Studios where
physical piece of the
they
dinosaur
upgraded
that
it.
was going to be made
Not that one.
We needed to be able to
Indominus
keep it
Rex.
and extend
I
the
think
rest
that's
of
what
the
it's called.
dinosaur in post-production. And so it was really important that it moved in the same way as our digital creature. So this is the range of motion in the physical animatronic sufficient to allow the dinosaur to do what it needs to do. We could actually pass that information back to John Nolan, who was the creature effects supervisor. So when John was making the animatronics, they would be positioned in such a way that matched ILM digital models. So it's kind of digital creatures driving practical animation.
To reflect paleontological research, the digital team also developed tools to create feathered dinosaurs.
Feathers has been a long burning desire, I think, for all of the Jurassic fans. Feathers are really complicated to simulate and to describe all of that very intricate geometry in 3D. So we actually built a brand new feather system at ILM in Houdini that we dubbed internally Quill.
Sorry, real quick. This right here goes to show you, to some that may not realize it, but the detail, and they're specifically talking about feathers, which is done even in animation. Next time you see an animated movie, make sure you just see the details of trees brushing, or the wind brushing the trees, the grass, the water, just even details in something like creating creatures that have been gone for so many years.
They're able to build this procedural system which gave the artist the control over the groom and the texturing of those feathers. It allowed simulation with snow, wind, water, all in the same software package.
Even with new feathered creatures, the dinosaurs created by Stan Winston and ILM nearly 3 decades ago are still seen in today's movies. For Jurassic World Dominion, director Colin Trevorrow wanted the VFX creatures to feel as close as possible to its predecessors. So the digital team conducted what they called digital archaeology.
The T-Rex is where this digital archaeology comes in. We actually went back into the Ireland digital archives from the original Jurassic Park, and we restored the original 3D soft image models. So we were able to make sure that the model we're using from Jurassic World Dominion matched as closely as possible. And at the same time, we actually went back to Stan Winston's original physical animatronic. And we have loads of really amazing reference photography of it, and we completely retextured the T-Rex to match it.
CG has come a long way since then.
ILM only had 60 shots in Jurassic. Now we'll do several thousand shots in a movie.
We are aware that these walk the face of the earth, and for that they have a very, very special place. And it also makes it that much more exciting because you're kind of, wow, I'm bringing something to life, a real thing to life.
Amazing stuff. Amazing stuff. Well, let me go back. Starting the next video, but overall, as you see, 6 movies, what came before, they still use to this day, and they've just obviously upgraded in technology and CGI. That's what I just am amazed. And to all of you that didn't know about this, hopefully you're kind of like, hey, that's pretty cool, pretty interesting, of what actors have to look at a puppet or just a foam head of a dinosaur and something that's trying to kill him. But yeah, no, that was a behind the scenes reaction look to the Jurassic Park films. You all let me know in the comments, what is your favorite movie, your favorite moment in any of the films. And thank you guys all so much for watching. Please make sure to like, subscribe, comment, check out previous videos on the channel, and plenty more stuff to come. We'll see you all next time. Bye-bye, guys.